Hi, it's Mr. Logue. In this lesson, we're going to be showing fractions in their simplest form. You might remember from previous lessons on fractions that even though a fraction has different numerators and different denominators, that it can be called equal or equivalent. Let's have a look at what that looks like in real life. Here is one whole post-it note. If I fold that post-it note into two parts, I have made 1/2 of the post-it note. 1/2 of the post-it note. If I fold that post-it note into 4 equal parts, I have now made quarters. I have 1, 2, 3 quarters. If I put up the 1/2 post-it note again, next to the one that's been folded into quarters, you will see that 1/2 of a post-it note is equivalent to 2 quarters. 1/2 is equivalent to 2 quarters. And this equation here is showing us that. It's saying that they're equal. Right, so how do we use a method to show every fraction in its simplest form? The simplest form being the one that's got the smallest numerator on top. Right, let's go through the steps. Before we do step 1, it's worth remembering that if a numerator on a fraction is 1, then that fraction is already in its simplest form. We don't need to do anything to it. There's nothing less than 1 that we can have on top of a fraction. We cannot simplify it any further. So, how do we simplify fractions? Well, this method involves dividing the numerator and the denominator by the same whole number. To do that, what we need to ask ourselves, using our knowledge of times tables, is which times table are both the numerator and the denominator in? Which times table are they both in? Once we have worked that out, we divide the top and the bottom, the numerator and the denominator, by the same number. Step 2. If appropriate, we repeat step 1 until either the numerator is 1 or we cannot find a times table, other than the 1 times table, that the numerator and the denominator share. Every number's in the 1's times table, as you know. But if there's no times table that 2 numbers are in, we can't simplify it any further. So it is in its simplest form. Let's have a look at what that looks like with this calculation. We might often see a question that says this: show the fraction in its simplest form. So let's remember step 1. We need to divide the numerator and the denominator by the same whole number, asking ourselves, which times table are both these numbers in? Well, I know my 3's, and I know that 6 is in the 3's. So I can divide 3 by 3. 3 divided by 3 is 1. And I also can divide 6 by 3. 6 divided by 3 is 2. This fraction is now in its simplest form because we have 1 as a numerator. Here's another fraction, 5/25, and we need to show this in its simplest form. So let's think of step 1 again. Divide the top number and the bottom number by the same whole number, asking ourselves, which times table are both these numbers in? Well, I know from my 5 times table that 25 is in that, and 5 is obviously in the 5 times table. So 5 divided by 5 is 1, and 25 divided by 5 is 5. 5/25 is equal to 1/5, and we know it's in its simplest form because 1 is the numerator. You may have noticed in the previous 2 calculations we were able to find the times table that both the numbers were in simply and do it in one step. Here we have 40/60, and At first glance, I'm not sure which number to divide by. I know because this is 40 and this is 60, they end in 0, so they are both multiples of 10. So I know they both must be in the 10 times table. So I'm going to start off by dividing them by 10. 40 divided by 10 is 4. What we do to the top, we must do to the bottom. 60 divided by 10 is 6. And now we have 4/6. But when I look at 4/6, I say to myself, I don't think that's in its simplest form. I think there might be a times table that 4 and 6 are both in. That's right, they're both even, so they're both in the 2 times table. 4 divided by 2, 2. 6 divided by 2, 3. 4/6 is equal to 2/3, so 40 over 60 is also equal to 2/3. Can we be sure this is in its simplest form? Are 2 and 3 in any times table other than the 1 times table? No, they are not. We've found this fraction in its simplest form. Here are 4 fractions for you. You need to show them in their simplest form. You should pause the video now, try to solve them, and then unpause to check your answers. Good luck! Here are the answers. 4/8 in its simplest form is 1/2. 9/12 in its simplest form is 3/4. 21/35 in its simplest form is 3/5. 64/100 in its simplest form is 16/25. Let's go through those steps again. To show a fraction in its simplest form, we must divide the numerator and the denominator by the same whole number. Ask yourself which times table both the numerator and the denominator are in. Step 2, repeat step 1 until either the numerator is 1 or there is no times table that the numerator and the denominator share. Hopefully you found this video useful and you are now confident on showing fractions in their simplest form. Bye for now.